what role do students play in shaping the university's future and in your university decisions? Hi guys and welcome to Coffee with President. I'm Syed, your president here at University of Birmingham Guild of Students. So this podcast is about real conversations with the senior most management in the university about how their decisions shape our university. So, in each episode, we're going to dive into stories, decisions, and visions that impact student life here at University of Birmingham. Today, I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by our very own Vice Chancellor, Adam Tickell. Hi, Adam. Welcome to the Coffee with President podcast session.
Hi, Syed. Great to be with you.
Since you're the Vice Chancellor of the university, my first question would be, what's your favorite spot on campus?
So, Syed, you've been here for a year and you know, or, well, a couple of years, really, and you know that we've got probably the best campus of any university in the country. It's beautiful, green space, but my very favourite place is Winterbourne Gardens. And Winterbourne Gardens is a botanical gardens. What's really lovely is any student can get in for free. And over the last year or so, so many more students go and just enjoy the garden. So it's a great place.
Yeah, and also I've heard that the university is the most photogenic university in UK.
Well, that's because we've got the most photogenic guild president.
Well, I would agree on you on that. So I'm gonna dive a bit more deeper, right? What do you see as the biggest opportunity for University of Birmingham in the next 5 years?
So listen, I mean, you probably know that universities around the world are facing challenges. These are not great times in lots of countries. Um, I think Birmingham is just not like that. At the moment, we're seeing real optimism at the university, real ambition, and you can see this expressed in all sorts of ways. So, the thing that you've seen is over the last 3 or 4 years, we've just gone up in the QS League tables, number 76 in the world now. I don't think that's good enough. So we're looking to do even better. Um, our academics are just amazing people. Over the last 3 years, in each of those, they've won over £250 million of research awards. But the teaching here is amazing. So,
It is.
unlike I think any other university in the UK, at the end of the year, we have a 3-week program that we call UOB Extra,
Oh yeah, of course.
and loads of activities with talks, fun, games, projects, career opportunities. It's a really great time. So I think just continuing to build on being as best as we possibly can be, and making sure people around the world recognise that because I mean it's a great place to be.
It is. Being an international student, I think that University of Birmingham, I've made the best decision. Like, it's just amazing.
I honestly think that's true, and there are some universities that are much better at selling themselves, and I think
Yeah.
we probably don't shout enough. And
Yep.
one of the things I like about Birmingham is we have quite a humble culture. But at times you just need to be a bit bolder and say, "Just look how great we are," and I think we really are great.
I know. So this is just like like a funny question. As your role as a vice chancellor, what can you give me some insights on your as a role as a vice chancellor? Like,
Yeah, so I get asked this question quite a lot because some people think you're like a head teacher of a school, um, and some people, I mean, most people don't really understand, and I always get asked at the end of term, we're just at the end of term when we're recording, um, people ask me whether you've got a long summer holiday. The truth is I've got a very busy job. It's a fantastic job, but it's different every single day. So I am responsible for running the university. So I don't do everything. I've got a really good team around me, but I'm responsible for that. I do quite a lot of work in with government, trying to make the case for various different things around universities. And I'm an advisor to government on various things. Um, I meet students a lot. I have lunches with students, have an open office session with students, do the same with staff. But what's lovely about my job, and sometimes really tiring, is that every day is different. Every day, almost every day is interesting, and every day is definitely very tiring.
I completely get that. Being a president is just you just get pulled off to so many meetings.
You do, but, it is a real privilege, and
Yeah,
it's a real privilege to be in a university like Birmingham, where I think people really believe in what
yeah,
we're trying to do, and we're trying to do 2 things:
correct.
great education, great research, and people believe in it, and that's lovely.
I mean, it kind of resonates on how we ranking up in our QS resonates of like the fantastic research and our student experience. We're climbing up the table. Not soon, we'll probably be under like the top 50.
Well, I mean, we hope so, and the university has an aim to be in the top 50. Um, each time we make progress, it's very, very difficult because the difference between, a top 100 university and a top 50 university is much, much harder to make the difference than it is between 100 and 200. But we're not going back there. We're going forward.
True. So, as your role as vice chancellor, since we're talking about students and staff, what role do students play in shaping the university's future and like in your university decisions?
So students play a big role in a lot of different ways. Um, the first and most obvious, and you know this, but we'll tell your audience, is that the guild president and one other member of the guild sits on the university governing body, our
The
council,
council,
and the council does two things really. It sets the strategy for the university, and it holds me and my team to account.
correct.
And students are really involved in that. And I think in all the time I've been here, all the guild presidents have been very active in that process, very constructively active and asking questions and always bringing the student voice in so that most of the members of council who are frankly middle-aged people who don't really understand universities very well, they hear the student voice and they take it seriously and we take it seriously.
Okay.
But then in the day-to-day, there's a lot of day-to-day. So um, uh, most students are elected on a campaign pledge, and
Mm,
PVC education and the education team work to them to see if they can deliver their campaign pledges, and we're often able to work very closely. We have student reps in every department and every school, and they feed into both through the guild and they feed into us about how we understand and shape things. And of course, you tell us what students want to learn. I mean, often we just don't know, so those kind of things are
fe-
really helpful.
I know how important feedback is, and how that kind of shapes the university. So, if you could change one misconception students have about university's leadership or decision, what do you think that would be like? What do you think there's a misconception of?
I mean, listen, you're in some ways, you're better able to tell me what those misconceptions are. Um, but, sometimes we do make challenging decisions and decisions that people don't like. And I just maybe it'd be useful to explain why we do that. So the first thing is I don't make any decision just by myself. I do it on the back of an assessment of what's legal. And we're really constrained by a whole bunch of laws. So we're bound by equalities law here, quite rightly. We're bound by laws around freedom of speech. We're bound by laws on competition. So tons and tons of different laws, not just about universities, but about British society in general. And we have to take those into account every single time. Um, we also think about what the values of the university are. We think about what the makeup of our whole stakeholder community are. So what we often find is that there's one group who feel very, very strongly about something, um, and get really frustrated that we can't do anything about it or we don't make a change. What I'm trying to do and what my senior team is trying to do, and ultimately what the council is trying to do, is balance those interests against competing interests. Because even in law, some of the law completely contradicts each other. So we have to make an assessment. I suppose the other misconception is that we're all human, and humans,
And
we do great things, but humans make mistakes.
yeah,
So
true.
you have to learn from that, and I don't think anybody's too big to accept that.
That's that's good to hear. And like, what things are considered before the university makes a decision out there. So, as your time as a vice chancellor, right? What legacy do you want to leave behind as a vice chancellor?
Yeah, it's a really great question because as I think about um, vice chancellors who I've known, not necessarily here actually, but in other universities, then often they think about the physical legacy. What's the university going to look like when I leave? And as I said at the beginning, we've got an amazing campus, and it is really important that you just maintain and enhance that. But the buildings are really important, but they're not the most important thing. The most important thing about university is it's a community, and it's a community of um, people who have very different thinking and um, very different ways of approaching the world. Um, but ultimately, I think one of the things that's great about universities, they are absolutely full of really talented, passionate, interesting people. So the legacy I'd really like to leave is a university where that kind of culture of inquiry, of challenging, and actually challenging yourself as much as challenging other people. Um, an intellectually strong university which gives a great education and which continues to do world-leading research. That's the real legacy. That's something I'd be really proud of if I can do that.
Since you're now the senior most leadership role in the university, how would you define leadership? Like, how do you define leadership in that role? Like, not as a vice chancellor, but like being a leader. What's the qualities, and what do you think that people should do to be a leader? Like,
You know, it's a great question. I was listening to another podcast in the last couple of weeks, and there was somebody talking about leadership, and they said they'd read, I can't remember what it was. It was like 351 different definitions of leadership. Um, and in some respects, that's a really frightening thing. And I kind of think leadership, um, good leadership has to change with the times. Um, I don't believe in a sort of top down telling
okay,
people what to do kind of leadership.
mm,
You don't get the best out of people like
yeah,
that. And it has to be adaptive to the organization you're in.
mm,
Um, and I also think that leaders are to be found everywhere. So, you know, you said I am the most senior person in the university, and I am. But if I tried to do everything, it would be chaotic.
yeah,
So for me, a good leadership in that context then means you have to empower people.
okay, that's good.
You have to hold them to account, because it's really easy to empower people and then not make sure you get the outcomes you're looking for. Um, and you have to be approachable, because you know, in this day and age, people want to believe in their
Yeah,
leaders, and if they think you're a distant figure, then they don't really believe in you. And I think that's really important.
true. But I believe leadership is also about balancing people's needs because you're in a position where you need to like there are diverse students or people with like really different needs, and balancing that is a challenge. And I think a good leader finds the good balance.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. And you know, that can sometimes be quite difficult because you're never going to satisfy
Oh
everybody.
yeah, definitely.
I think the only thing is, what you should never try to do is simply say, "I'm going to go into the middle and make everybody happy." And you know, for me, a good leader knows what they're trying to achieve. And sometimes you can't balance things, and sometimes you just have to say to people, "This is what we're going to be doing. You might not like it, but you know, we really, really have to think about the organization." And you know, something unsettling is that I have to think about that myself. So at the time when I'm no longer right for this university, they need to throw me out, or just tap me on the shoulder and say it's time for you to retire or whatever, because the university is bigger than any of us, even though it doesn't always feel like that.
I think that's enough questions as vice chancellor. I want to ask now Adam Tickell, like, what's your journey been to become the vice chancellor of this university? Like, what, like, a bit more into your personal life? Like, you get what I mean?
Yeah, I do. So I mean, I'll spare you the full on history because I'm an old man now. So, but
This Hana called enough.
yeah, um, I went to university in the 1980s, and when I left university, it was a really tough time in the job market in Britain. And I knew a couple of things. I didn't want to go and work in the private sector. I just didn't want to do that. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I did a PhD.
Okay.
Um, and and then I sort of fell into, in some ways, being an academic. And I loved that job. I loved that life. Being an academic was a huge privilege for me. You know, you taught enthusiastic young people who would often teach you stuff as well, because you know, partly through the questions they'd ask. Um, and you're able to research things you're interested in.
Mm,
So it was a huge privilege. But what I found myself more and more is being drawn into management, even in my department or whatever it was. And after a while, my wife, who I'd met at university actually, my wife said to me, "You just need to admit that that's what you're gonna do." And I kind of thought, "What are you talking about?" But as ever, she had a better idea. So I started moving into university management, and each time I was there, I didn't think I was brilliant, but I thought I can do it better than that person there. So I kept on at it. And then at some point, I remember I was sitting in my home with my wife and my best friend, um, and they made a comment about me becoming a vice chancellor. And I just laughed at them, said, "Don't be so ridiculous." Uh, and one of them said, "Oh," they laughed. They were laughing at me saying that, and I then thought maybe I'll give that a go. So I did a series of management jobs. I did
Okay.
as a dean in Royal Holloway at University of London, um, and then after that, I came here as pro vice chancellor of research.
Oh, okay.
And then I was provost here, and then I moved to another university as vice chancellor and then came back here about 3.5 years ago.
Oh, that's crazy. So, where did you do your undergrad, and like, where, how long we been in West Midlands? Like, where were you from?
So I'm kind of a bit from nowhere because I was brought up in London,
Oh, okay.
but only until I was 11 or 12.
Oh,
And then my parents, we moved to rural Oxfordshire, uh, and then moved a few years after that into Oxford. But 2 years after that, I left home altogether and went to university, and I never went back. And I went to university in Manchester. And I did both my PhD and my undergraduate degree there. And I did that because, well, partly because I wanted to go to a proper city. And I didn't even consider Birmingham, because I have a brother and an elder brother and an older sister who both came and studied here.
oh, okay.
And I really didn't want to go somewhere they'd been. You know, being I'm the fifth of seven children.
Oh,
And being the fifth of seven children, you are used to being told as you grow up,
wait,
they've already done it before. So I really didn't want to be in a university town where they'd already done it before. I needed to be in a
mm,
different place.
fair. So, this is the last bit of the question. What's your final advice to students be?
I think it's. I mean, there's a couple of things that are really important, and it doesn't feel like this, but you've got a long life ahead of you. And if I look back over my life, as I said, I went to university in the 1980s. When I graduated, there were there was no. It's not just there was no internet. There were no mobile phones. I was one of the first 100,000 people in the world to use email. Um, and, over the course of time, if you think how much change that's led to, by the time you're all my age, then I think it is impossible to think what the world will look like.
True.
And that might sound scary, but actually it's not. It's a world of opportunity. And if you don't get the job you're looking for, or you don't get the exam grades you're looking for, in some ways it doesn't really matter. What matters is you adapt and you think, um, and you take the bad things along with the good. Every single person has setbacks. I can't tell you the number of times bad things have happened. I've applied for jobs I haven't got. Um, I've When I was an academic, I was sent in academic papers which got rejected or didn't get the research grants I wanted, or all those kind of things. Everything happens. When it happens to you, particularly when you're younger, you think this is a catastrophe, but it really isn't.
Fair. Thank you, Adam. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Syed. That was great. Thank you.
And that brings us to the end of the Coffee with President session. Thank you, Adam, for joining us and sharing your journey. If you enjoyed the conversation, give it a like and share it with a friend. Thank you for watching, and we'll meet in the next episode.